Welcome to the Realty Hack Podcast, where we talk about damn good tips for leveling up your top performing real estate team or brokerage. Today, we have special guest Jessica Woodbeck. My name is Ryan Rodenbeck, broker owner of Spyglass Realty.
And I'm Kelly, the Director of Marketing here at Spyglass Realty. Today, we have on the podcast Jessica Woodbeck. How are you doing today, Jessica?
So good. Excited to be here. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, glad to have you here. So to give anyone that's listening the background on Jessica, she's the founder of Thrive Realty Company, the team lead of the Woodbeck team. She is a coach at Thrive Real Estate, and your mission is to create wealth and change lives. So I want to give a little background here on, I know Jessica through the curator community, which I was in for many years. I believe you're still a part of that, and I've made some of the most solid friendships of my career, certainly in that group. And, you know, what information that Kelly has so graciously gathered for us is that you started as a negotiator for IT contracts at General Motors. Tell us how you went from how you got into that and how you got into real estate.
All right, so that previous life before real estate, I was in corporate America. I worked for General Motors. I mean, I live in Metro Detroit, so automotive is where it's at here. And I climbed the ladder there, ended my career in IT contracts. I bought actual project people to come aboard, and then I managed my contracts. That was before they divided those two segments out. So I ended negotiating Verizon wireless contract for us, which was in the multi-millions. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I loved it there. It was great, but it was passionless for me.
So this is always a good question for people, but like it differs a lot. But when did you start thinking about real estate, and how did that transition happen?
Yeah, the story. I started thinking about real estate very young. My mom has always loved real estate. She always has been into interior design. She used to be one. And we would look at houses online together all the time. And then when I became a little bit older, we started actually going and like looking inside houses. We were those horrible buyers that never buy, always asking realtors to let us in, the looky-loos. And then I decided one day that I was going to go into property management.
I started in that too.
Did you?
Yeah.
Loved it. I loved it.
I hated it.
Yeah, I loved it just because of the interaction. It was my first introduction to real estate and the business end of it. But there's really nowhere to go in property management. So after that, I decided to get licensed, and the rest is history.
So what did you do in property management? You just got a job as working as a property manager, or?
Yep. So I worked for an asset controller for a large conglomerate out here that owned multiple apartment buildings.
Okay.
And so I started just as a leasing consultant, and then I worked my way up to essentially like a problem solver for the region. I would go into areas that weren't leasing out, that were under where we wanted to be for a profitability standpoint, and I would help them lease up. I would start looking at their leasing consultants and their sales training and how they were building the culture there and presenting the products and environment to the consumer. And I loved that, but that was pretty much where I could go, unless I went back into the corporate world and sit in a room all by myself looking at numbers all day. So that's when I just decided it was time to move on and check out what real estate was all about.
Okay, so that's a little bit different than what I was in. I started a company selling investment property, and we got to 500 units with about 200 owners, different owners, and some were fourplexes, some were a little bit run down, and it was just you were working for a company that owned them all then. Mm-hmm. So not that big of a leap from the corporate world at that point.
Yeah. What did you not like about it?
Well, what I didn't like about it, several things. This was right before the bust. And This is, the subprime. People in California were getting HELOC loans, buying stuff with 5% down, like fourplexes, and they just didn't have any money. And if there was a vacancy, it was like just the biggest deal, right? I mean, I realized what happened with the subprime is like they were lending people money that really didn't have any money. You could get the time you get a $200,000 fourplex with 5% down. So and just answering to different owners, and like there was no gratification at all. If you did something good, that meant you didn't hear from the owner. If there were any hiccups, you would hear every day.
Nothing
Yeah.
but problems.
So you're working for the property management company, and then what drew you to get your real estate license, and in what form did you start?
It was actually at that time of kind of wondering where my career would go. The state was talking about how all people involved in property management, leasing out property, were going to need to get their license. And so because of what I was doing, my director came to me and said, I really think you should look into this. And I hemmed and hawed. And then I thought, maybe this would be a good way out of what I'm doing. And I ended up going for it. It was 2009. Everyone was exiting real estate. And I was like, hello, shiny new face. I'm here.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, what are you doing? Get out of here. Short sale haven, REO, right? Everyone remembers that time.
Yep.
And I loved it. I mean, what I loved the most about it was the critical problem solving that you got to do at that time. There were so many gaps in what was happening, and I really loved to be able to help people out of that hardship. That was something that stole my heart.
Did you start on a team or no, just kind of solo with a
good
bigger
old
company?
Century 21 back in the day? They were the big guys in the city that I was in at the time. And I had a lot, I'm a fourth generation in that city, so I knew a lot of people there and people that would be retiring, and so I thought there'd be great mentorship. And that's where I started. And then GM called me back. So I actually left real estate, went back to GM 5 years later, and ended up going full-time real estate when I was pregnant with my daughter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so when was that?
So that was 2013. I was 7 months pregnant, breadwinner. I married a Detroit police officer. So I had the bigger check between us, I guess. And I called my husband from my office and said, if this is the rest of my life, I don't know if I want to go that way. I cannot see myself living this corporate lifestyle for the rest of my life. And I think if I were to had my child and gone back after maternity leave, I would have just chosen safety, just out of the sake of, that's what parents do. That's what moms do. And he's like, okay. I said, I think I'm going to go ahead and quit. I'm going to quit my job. He's like, whoa, slow down. Let's talk about this when you come home. 48 hours later, I resigned. So and then I went full time, and, I thought that was a great idea. 7 months pregnant, go full time real estate. I really didn't think forward of, oh, by the way, you're about to have a baby. There's going to be a gap in time you can serve people here.
Yeah, 10 months of hell.
So I built up my pipeline pretty big, and I thought, oh gosh, what am I going to do here? Because I can't not have money coming in. And my darling husband agreed to get licensed so that he could fill the gap temporarily, so that he could show my clients, he could do all the things.
Right. So like police officers have schedules like almost like doctors, really, like they'll work. Is that right? They work like 3 days on and then 4 days off. So although they're working full time, it's not your traditional schedule.
Exactly. And he had been there long enough. It was, I think, 13 or 14 years at that point that he had major seniority. So he had some flexibility in his schedule, and it worked out well. He ended up making his salary, his Detroit police officer salary, in one transaction.
Wow.
That changed his life. That was it. He was like, wow, I can't believe. And I mean, we were robbing Peter to pay Paul at that time, right? I quit my job. I'm trying to start the real estate thing. And I still remember his face staring at our bank account thinking, who does this money belong to? This can't all be ours. What do we do here?
Yeah. So, okay. So at this point, you still don't have a team. It's just you and him.
Just him and I. That's right. He was still working with, his career. And I decided we didn't teams. I mean, we had a couple of teams in the area, but they weren't, they were like grinded out teams. It was, the
Yeah.
big quantity over quality model, which is a fine model. It just doesn't speak to me.
Right.
Uh,
Same.
and so him and I went at it a little different. That's when I sought out Curator.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the gap in our area, at least, was no one had a really catchy website. No one had any sort of
Mm-hmm.
way to capture leads through their website. No one was really present on social media or doing ads in a really prevailing way. And so reached out to them, had no business reaching out. I was a $2 million producer. This was
Yeah.
back when Chris and Jimmy were still onboarding people. I mean, I thank
Yeah.
God I got them early on.
When exactly was this? What year do you think?
So this is, gosh, 2013. It must have been end of 14 that I contacted them.
Oh, wow. So you came on before I did.
Did I? Okay.
I think so. I think I came on in, I want to say 2015. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it must have. I know that we were, of course, it was a large undertaking for us at the time, the financial impact. And
Yeah.
we came to terms that, essentially Jimmy and Chris said to me, what are your options? Like, what's the plan if you don't? I thought, oh,
Yeah.
good one. Right. Exactly. Let's go.
So that was your first platform.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I had a rank-a-dink website. I had tried something with like a freelancer, and it was a disaster. It wasn't even up and running.
Yeah. Okay. And then and so what's your first, like, how did you develop your team? What was your first hire?
Yeah, so 15, we're up and running. First hire was actually in 16. It was just Justin and I for that full year. And we just, sun up to sundown, real estate, real estate, real estate. I was doing listings. I was doing all of our admin work. He was doing all buy sides. And we decided, we were losing too much time. We had obviously with 2 children at this point, and we needed to hire somebody if we wanted to just maintain our values of, time is finite and we want to spend it with our loved ones, not just in the field and selling.
Yeah.
And so we made our first hire in 2016, and
Nice.
we started team building from that year on slowly.
Gotcha.
And then we got it wrong so many times, Ryan. So many.
Oh my God. Tell me about it.
So many failures in there.
Yeah.
Too many to even count. We burned
That's
our house.
why we're so wise, is because we've continually
messed it up. Yes, we've messed it up big time. Lots of blood, sweat, and tears. But we finally have gotten it right. We burned it down twice, all the way down to the ground. Kept our admin only. Everyone else was gone.
Yeah. So, and then it's interesting because, like, you're independent now, and I am one of these rare people that have always been independent, right?
Yes.
I've never been with a big box. So, sometimes people ask me, like, well, should I stay with a franchise or should I go independent? Well, I'm obviously biased, right? I can't really answer that question.
You know nothing else.
Yeah. So what was the decision there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I feel like I was able to explore real estate from, you're broke and poor and you don't know how you're going to get your next check, all the way to I led KW franchises. So I had recruited 143 agents in 12 months with my team there. I mean, I felt like I had done just about everything by the time I went back to the Woodbeck team. And then the global pandemic hit, and we were already running like a mini brokerage, right? I mean, that TL experience of running a franchise really helps you hone in on how to run a smaller business, definitely. So
Wait, explain that to me real quick. So what were you doing with the franchise?
So I was their team leader, which in the business world is their CEO. So I took over the business with the gentleman that bought it in 2018. And it was essentially a failing brokerage. It wasn't like the worst, but it wasn't peaking out. It was the largest region in Michigan, and it just wasn't performing at the level it should have been. So,
and at that, because I think like, I can never say her last name, Melanie in Austin, can new, gosh, hopefully she doesn't listen to this, know her very well. But that's more of like a salary position, isn't it?
it is salaried.
Right.
Yep.
So that
So
kind of gives you a different insight into how a franchise works.
Absolutely.
Is probably very valuable.
Oh, absolutely. They say running any franchise at that level, 250 agents, 2 different locations, recruiting at the level that we were. It just, it's like a fast track MBA. It really taught me a lot.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So then you go back to the team, right? And was your husband always practicing this whole time or what?
He's practicing the whole time. He was running. I left him high and dry. I said, thanks for joining me in real estate. I'm going to go do this other thing over here. I love you. And then I come back and, we were performing well. I considered it a massive win to take myself out of production, and we held the line. We didn't grow that year, but we held the line I think we're a $20 million team at the time, and we didn't lose any volume. So that was my goal.
How many people did you have at the time?
18. We probably had 10 agents.
Okay. And so you started this year. I know you and I had, you know what I was thinking about? There's a sidebar here, right?
Yeah.
Is that you and I have had so many conversations on the phone.
Yes.
I don't know that we've actually ever met in person.
I don't think we have.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever been in the same room at the same time.
No, that's so funny. Because I remember talking to you last year when you were thinking about going independent.
Right. Yeah. I did my homework. I called everybody I knew.
Yeah. So you went independent, and how many of your team went with you?
Everybody.
Wow.
Every single person.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, and it really, it is a wow, and I'm grateful for the trust. And we're running as a mini brokerage as it was. Right? We were the resource for training. We were the resource for people asking questions. We were the ones helping, putting on, events and things like that. I was the team leader at the brokerage they were at. So there was a lot of validity in what we were doing. And we're such a tight knit group, right? We're not that big. 10 agents, handful of staff. So, it was more like a family. And
and I interviewed Chris Lindahl a while back, and we talked for a long time. And one of the things that he had said that I kind of mentor, that I adopt myself rather, right, is that like the successful brokerages are going to be the ones that run with a team mentality. Okay. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head is that, for me, what I tell my agents is I've got to earn my split every year. Okay. I think it's really hard for a large franchise, especially, to do that with with teams.
Yeah. I think especially as that team grows, right. And the brokerage starts pulling on these. I was doing it myself, right. Pulling on teams for value and authority to bring to the brokerage. They forget a lot of times of how to bring value to that team. It just doesn't become one of their focuses, because that meaty middle is where the brokerage makes its money. When you're that big, when you have 250 agents, the 1 to 5 mil is where you're making all your money.
Right. And you really need to, as we grow, like, we're at 45 agents right now. And like, our biggest thing is like, adding value to the agents, right? Because we do have to earn that. And we don't do, caps here at Spyglass Realty. And the reason I'm very open about it is like, we couldn't do what we do with caps, we need the revenue to order to be put back into the company so that we can offer these services to agents.
Sure.
So Kelly, you've been listening in. She always has some different point of view. Do you have any questions for her?
So I think your journey is so interesting. And I feel like for at least within the scope of the podcast, you're the first person that we've interviewed who's went from corporate to working for yourself in real estate, back to corporate, and then back to working for yourself. My question to you is, what were some of the biggest challenges that you had gone through for your journey, especially as a woman, and briefly you were pregnant too? And what were some of the important lessons learned that you could share?
This is a great question. There are so many. I think I look at it as if I could go back to myself, 10 years ago and talk to myself then, um, it would be believing that you can do it, right? You can take that risk, you can go all in. And guess what? If it doesn't work out, go back to plan B. No big deal. A lot of times I think fear cripples our ability to move, to transition. Everyone's looking for the perfect timing. They're looking to be unhappy in order to make a move or make a change. And it doesn't need to be that way. You hold the power of choosing. And a lot of times we forget that. We just get complacent and mundane and scared. For me, I was a single mom, and having the safety net. I grew up in a long line of business consultants that always affiliated with automotive, and to not be affiliated like that, to not have that safety net, just felt foreign. And that's why I went back. Oh, they called me back. Of course I should go. And once I got there, I realized this is just not my home. This is not for me.
Yeah.
I'm not meant to be here, and I desire something else. And just having that full faith that, even if you mess up, I mean, like Ryan and I were saying, how many times we've failed, how many times we probably sat in bed right before bed going, what are we doing? Should we be doing this? And just knowing that at the end of the day, if you have faith in yourself and a divine will to keep going, anything is truly possible. And I know that's cliche. I know that sounds like foo-foo butterflies, but it's true.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because we have, the listeners that we have, some of them are newer agents. And what is your advice for an agent that is either picking a brokerage? And one thing I noticed from all my recruiting that I've been attempting to do is that, a lot of people just choose the wrong place, right? So what is your advice for an agent that is either looking to make a switch or looking for their first, brokerage? What advice would you give them?
I would really look at, well, I think it really depends on that person, right? You're not a fit for everybody, Ryan.
Yeah.
Nor want to be, right? And neither am I. And at the end of the day, if you're interested in what Ryan has or what I have, really looking for the happiness and the elevated lifestyle of the people that are affiliated with it, because
The culture.
that's volumes. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it just simply, what are their thoughts? How are they gaining the sense of belonging at Spyglass Realty or Thrive
Yeah.
Realty? I think that above anything else, especially now, people need community. They need structure that's not stifling. They need great marketing. They need it to be easy so they can go do what they're great at. And I believe you offer that. I offer that. Ask those questions instead of, will you do my listing packet? Of course. Of course. Yeah, all of that's available. Yes, we can talk about splits, but beyond that, the value's there, and really
right. Yeah, when I talk to an agent that I like, that I want to come over, the challenge I put to them, and some of them actually take me up on it, is like, go to my agent page and pick an agent. I'm not gonna tell you who to pick.
Right.
Pick one, pick two, pick three, and then ask them what the opinion is, right? Because it's not a plant, right? And
exactly.
I think that
same thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we are running out of time. I got a hard stop at 4. I wish I had another 30 minutes with you because this has been great. And thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming on, and we'll be talking soon.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care, guys.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Jessica. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for joining the podcast. Where can our listeners connect with you?
Thanks so much. This was a total blast. So if people want to connect with me, I think the best place is through social media, Facebook or IG with the handle Jess Woodbeck.